Good morning and welcome everybody. This is the Executive Leadership Orientation, and hopefully you all have been in your position less than a year because the last time we had this session was last August of 2019. So we attempt to, of course, hit all of the new execs coming into their positions. Now, in the past, this orientation has been geared towards AIOs and CIOs, but the past 2 years, we've expanded that to include new executives. So it's still, heavily towards the IT area, but if you're not in IT, feel free to ask questions that we may not be covering for yours. And again, most of this covers like department wide policies and roles and responsibilities. But we may get a little bit more into IT things as we have discussions. So feel free to ask a question either verbally or in the chat. I will be monitoring that as we go through, and then I'll be reading those aloud. So none of the presenters have to worry about looking at the chat while you're speaking. Okay, so I will go ahead and introduce myself. I am Brenda Burgess Cruz, the Deputy Director over the Office of Professional Development at CDT. And again, thank you for joining us today. And before we get started, we just wanted to take a, just assess the room, if you will, of who has been with the state, not in their current role, but just with the state for less than a year. And if you could just raise your virtual hand over there. Hopefully you all are familiar with.
I don't see the hand raising
Okay.
thing.
Yeah, because I have my presentation up, so I think
you have to turn participants on. You should see it at the bottom of the participants list.
Got it.
Yeah, you guys are still seeing my screen, right?
Yeah.
So let me stop sharing for a second. Okay. Now are you guys okay? So we have one. We only have one. Okay, we have
Sorry, what was the question again, Brenda? I was finding the hand.
Yeah, sorry. The question is anybody with the state less than a year?
Yeah, me. Let me raise my hand there.
Okay, so yay, we have more than one. Okay, so we have Beth at Cal OES, and then we have our own internal CDT, Catherine Milton in our CDT comms area. Okay, so
we have Udaya as well as Kevin as well. So
okay, I don't see their hand.
If you bring up the participants list, yeah, you'll see their hands.
Okay, now I see it. It wasn't up. Okay, so Udaya, Kevin. Okay, Udaya and Kevin. So 4. I did think we had a few. So okay. So welcome. So we're looking to you guys to like really drive out those questions so we can improve. This program began with AIOs and CIOs getting together and talking about what are the things that they think would be beneficial for somebody just coming into their position. Like what do they wish that they had known when they started their positions? So the group got together, developed the resource guide, which you were all sent. It's attached to the meeting notice. And then we started to do this presentation. Again, if you weren't on earlier, I was talking about how it was geared specifically towards AIOs, CIOs at the beginning, and now we've expanded it to all execs. So we're always welcome for some feedback, especially from those of you that are new to the state. And so this will be, newer and more unfamiliar to you. The rest of you will probably be familiar with some of it, but maybe not all of it, especially if you're coming from departments that don't deal with, what we call the control agencies. So, okay, so I'm gonna go back to screen sharing so we can begin the presentation. Okay. All right, so the agenda today, orientation overview, we're going to talk about the review of the AIO, CIO roles specifically, and then we have our key partners here. We have Rosanna Nguyen from Department of Finance, Sarah Gessler from Cal HR, and Angela Shell from DGS. They will give overviews of their departments, and then we will have a break. We'll have a Q&A session, and then we'll have a quick break. And then we will dive into CDT overview. Okay, and so with that, I will kick it off to Ellen Ishimoto, as the Acting State Chief Technology Officer.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I apologize, I'm filling in for Amy Tan, our state CIO. So I apologize she couldn't make it. As you know, in the newspapers, there's a hearing going on today. So she's a little bit busy preparing for hearings. So I'm just going to kick it off, and then I'll come back in later on to give you, in the CDT portion, to give you some more information about the department. But let's go ahead and, as Brenda mentioned, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. As Brenda mentioned, our focus initially was for agency information officers and chief information officers. And so we wanted to make sure that people are aware of the role of those entities. I'm not going to read this. I know you can do that yourself. Also, the resource guide goes into more details on what's actually in the state administrative manual as the definition of responsibilities for these two roles. And we know some of you actually have a whole different role, but here's kind of the basis of AIOs and CIOs. The second slide, let's go to the next one. This really is, Amy wanted us to really, as a state IT community, to start looking at things differently. So the kind of the old model of IT, very siloed, everybody's in their little swim lanes, from stakeholders to IT staff to IT management. And what we're trying to do is to really recommend and suggest that we start really shifting to more of a, really try to look at how do we transform how we work together to really support, quick delivery of digital services. And so the picture on the right certainly looks more chaotic, but it really is to say, hey, we need to work together. We can't just stay in our little swim lanes and just say, okay, here's what I need, and let's, somebody else works on it. We need to work collaboratively. And this is a picture to really show not just working within your department, but working across other departments, working with the business, as well as, with other IT. So it's really to show that kind of collaboration that needs to occur. And I think with COVID, I'll say that I've seen this personally, where this is really happening, where if we need to resolve a situation quickly, where we've been successful is where we've worked together collaboratively to get things done. And so again, I think this picture was, Amy brought this picture in years ago, but really this is kind of hitting home, especially for me right now, on this is how we need to do business. To do things quickly, we need to collaborate. Okay, so that's my spiel on behalf of Amy, to let's do things differently. And then I'm going to turn it back over, and we'll have our partner organizations do some presentations. So I don't know if I turn it back over to you, Brenda.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'll introduce Rosanna Nguyen from Department of Finance. Good morning, Rosanna.
Good morning. Hope you all can hear me okay. So my name is Rosanna Nguyen, and I am the Chief of the IT Consulting Unit at Department of Finance, also known as Department of No, for some of you that may have not heard that yet. And I think this year that might actually be true with our current budget situation. To give you just a brief overview of what our department is responsible for. Our mission is to serve as the governor's chief fiscal policy advisor. And then we also, work on resource allocation in preparing the state's budget. So we are a part of the governor's administration in the executive branch. Our director right now is Keely Bosler. And our main functions, we really have 4 areas, and that is to prepare and administer the state's annual budget. We analyze legislation that may have a fiscal impact. We develop economic forecasts as well as revenue estimates. And then lastly, we monitor expenditures of state departments to make sure that they comply with law, policy, and any type of standards. So, you know, there's several budget units within finance, ITCU, which is the IT consultant, it's my unit. We are within one of the budget units at finance, but our role is mainly to provide oversight and conduct fiscal analysis. So that's fiscal analysis of IT policy, IT projects or initiatives that are starting up. And then as those are approved, we have an oversight role. And so we are the main liaison between DOF budget staff and CDT's project approvals and oversight, Andrea's team, Andrea and Andy's team over there. And so we work real closely with them in terms of review of project documents, so anything going through the project approval lifecycle, which they'll talk about later. We also will look at special project reports. And then there's also a portion where we work with them in terms of the IT Bcp analysis. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So we are considered a critical partner in that review and approval process for the project documents. And then as projects are approved, we have a fiscal oversight role for any approved non-delegated IT projects. So that means we will attend steering committee meetings, we review project status reports, the independent project oversight reports, we participate in ledge updates, informational hearings, things like that. So, you know, all the way from kind of your initiation to throughout the life of the project, we're involved. And there's lots of opportunities for you to interact with my team. So I definitely encourage you to reach out, you know, find out who your oversight manager is, get to know who that is, and that they can be a resource to you during these processes. So with regard to fiscal policy, you know, we establish a lot of fiscal policy, and one of the things that you really need to be aware of are our budget letters. So we issue lots of these every year, but these provide the policy direction for things like requesting funding, budget change proposal and preparation guidelines, timelines, and then various reporting requirements, lots of reporting requirements, unfortunately. And there are a handful of budget letters that are specific to IT, and they will include, you know, critical due dates for when things should be submitted, and provide some timelines, you know, for review and things like that. So I always want to encourage you to look at the budget letters. On page 15 of your resource guide, it lists the 5 key budget letters that's related to IT specifically. And so while the numbers will change every year, but there are budget preparation guidelines, there's budget policy, one comes out for the fall process and one comes out for the spring process. And then we have something called Control Section 11, which I'll just mention in a second, and then planning project expenditure reporting. So those are all in your resource guide. I won't go through those. And the state's annual budget, you know, there's 3 key phases. And the first one really is budget development. And that's where we are right now. This is when all the departments submit their BCPs to finance, you know, budgets is reviewing, my team is reviewing, we send them to CDT, they're reviewing. So there's a lot of people looking at these proposals. And these are used to develop the governor's budget. And that is normally released January 10th. And because that's a Sunday this year, it's January 8th. So we have 2 less days to complete our review. And then any adjustments to that budget occurs either in spring, so April 1 via a spring finance letter, or in May via what we call a May revision. And so those would be the two updates that would provide any adjustment to the governor's budget. And something that I do want to point out is with regard to IT projects and project funding approval through your BCP, is those normally have to be released together. So we don't normally, approve a project ahead of funding or approve funding ahead of project approval. Those will occur together, either at governor's budget, the spring finance letter time, or at May revision. So planning for, those timelines is really important. The second phase is budget enactment. And so after we release the governor's budget, in the spring, the legislature has an opportunity to act on those proposals. They can approve them, they can modify them, they can, deny them. And so that happens through the hearing process. And both CDT and finance participate in the hearing process for those proposals. And we testify on behalf of the governor's budget. And so this can include attending pre-hearing meetings with you, any type of prep meetings. We review responses to questions from ledge staff and the legislative analyst's office. And it's important to know that at this point, we are acting as one administration. And so, we will often coordinate with you on responses and be there to support you in order to get your proposal approved through that hearing process. So one of the things that I want to make sure, you're aware of is if you do have a proposal that is, being heard, be aware of who the budget committee members are. And their concerns. So oftentimes, we might have, some are very IT savvy, some are not. Some may have specific perspectives on, policy. And so that could help prepare you for questions, because that may drive their line of questioning. And also, support your admin folks. This is mostly for our IT folks that are out there. But don't abandon your admin folks. Have the right folks available to speak to that item and others available for support. It's definitely a team effort. And then lastly, budget administration. So, after the budget is enacted, we have a fiscal oversight role, either for the project or for the program. So my team, we will monitor project costs. So if your project costs are, creeping up and they increase by, 20% or 5 million, it can trigger what we call a special project report. And then it also could trigger a legislative reporting requirement that we call Control Section 11. And that's referenced in Budget Letter 20-27, which, if you really needed to do some, reading, you could look at that, but that doesn't happen too often, but we will help you through that process and we'll let you know if that's required. And then if you did receive, funding for planning activities for a project, so maybe you got some positions, some consultant services, and you're still going through the project approval lifecycle process, there is an expenditure reporting requirement that you're subject to, and that's in Budget Letter 2028. So that's about, and I did see a question pop up. I don't know if you want me to, Brenda, answer that now, or
yeah, you can. We had, you know what, and this is however you guys want to do it. We want this to be interactive and have, participation from you. So feel free to send questions in chat or just raise your hand or just speak, at the appropriate time to ask your question. But we did get a question, Rosanna, from Beth Cousins from Cal OES, and she asks if we can subscribe to budget letters or do we need to go look for them?
So you can subscribe to the budget letters, and I can see Justin's note. We can send the link to the subscription, so you'll get all of them, and they are also listed on the DOF website. So yeah, we can definitely send out both of those links after the presentation.
And I'll just point out, this is being recorded, so we will share this recording in the next day or two after we clean up, like, you know, the beginning of it when we're still waiting for everybody to join and things like that. So we'll share this recording. A few of you have asked about this slide deck, which I will share during the break, because I can't, since I'm sharing my screen, I can't go to my email right now. So I'll send that during the break. And again, just feel free to submit the questions via the chat or raise your hand or just ask.
Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So in addition to all of the budget units at Finance, we do have an audit section. So our Office of State Audits and Evaluations, you know, they will conduct financial performance audits and budgetary reviews. And so, you know, keep in mind that all IT projects are subject to audit per the SAM section 4943. So just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And this is why, you know, we want to make sure everyone does their due diligence in terms of project documentation, appropriate analysis, as well as cost tracking. So budget change proposals or BCPs. And the question that I get all the time is, how do I get my BCP approved? And while there's no perfect answer, you know, there's a lot of things that kind of help you through the process in order to gain support for your proposal. And the first one is early engagement. This is a process that Finance has initiated the last couple years, and it's designed to have early and deep conversation about your department's, you know, key business problems that you're trying to solve, that you need funding for. This really helps kind of focus the discussion on what is the most important issues that your department is facing. Obviously, we don't like surprises, so we don't like getting things late and not really understanding the context. So the earlier that you can engage with your budget analyst, you know, CDT, even ITCU, it just helps the process along. And these conversations can occur as early as June or July. You know, also think about, you know, just be responsive if we need additional information, or you know, we want to reach out and have a conversation. All of those things can help, you know, provide information to us, because oftentimes the turnaround time can be very short. So the earlier, the better. Secondly, key relationships. I cannot stress this enough, and building these relationships early before we ever see the BCP. The process works best, and this is where I've seen is at departments when you have your IT folks, your program and business folks, and your budget staff all together. You know, they've got a good working relationship. They understand what's occurring, you know, on the business side, the IT side, and the budget side. That also helps us during BCP review season. Also during, you know, if we're reviewing any of your project documentations. Again, you know, it's not uncommon that we have a call. You might have the CIO, the program executives, SMEs, CDT, ITCU, and budgets, you know, all hearing information about your proposal and asking questions. And so just like ITCU is a critical partner in project document approval, you know, again, CDT does review IT BCPs, and they do provide a recommendation that we consider. And so good collaboration, you know, between your CDT team and ITCU and budgets during this process is really, really helpful. Third is budget deadlines. And so comply with the budget policy. You know, those are stated in the budget letters. The timelines as well is very important. So we like to see IT in the fall, and that's mainly because we have a little bit longer window for review time. And so we want to make sure that, you know, you're doing your prioritization, you've completed all of the proper planning to meet those particular deadlines. Spring BCPs and those for May revision, those are normally due in February. And so, you know, if we get the BCP the second week of February and we have to release an approval April 1, turnaround time is very short. So there's not a lot of time for question and answer and vetting for additional information. And just so you know, all IT BCPs should be approved by the CIO as well as the AIO. And then lastly, project documentation. So this is something that I get on my soapbox every month with CDT, with Andrea and Andy and their team. We have portfolio meetings, but adhere to the due dates for not only project documentation and the BCP submittals. And it's good to have those documents in alignment. So if you are asking for money for an IT project or even planning for a project, those documents are due mid-July. And that's a time frame that doesn't change. And the reason they're due in July is it gives us enough time to review and vet those documents prior to the BCP being submitted. So that way, when we actually receive the BCP, we have a full understanding of where the project is, what the need is. It makes it much easier for us to support that BCP. And to give you an idea of volume, so last fall, my team, we reviewed 165 IT-related BCPs. So not all projects, but IT-related BCPs. And I have a team of 3. So, we need as much time to review. And over the last budget cycle, we reviewed about 230 BCPs. So, the more that you can make sure that those documents are in alignment, and we understand, we're in a better position to support you. Spring requests, are generally submitted as needed, and usually requires some prior approval from the budget area. And so sometimes things will get deferred, sometimes maybe you're not ready, or for some reason in the cycle you need to submit in the spring. Just make sure that you reach out to your DOF budget analyst so that they're aware that something is coming. Again, timeframes in the spring are very short. So, if we do have questions, it could be that my team or even CDT is asking for questions and you might have a day or 2 days. We try to give people as much time, but sometimes that's just not possible. So if you've built those key relationships and you can just get on the phone and call us and answer, that's definitely be helpful. And in terms of the proposal, just a couple tips. Things that I see often when I review a BCP is, I want to know what the story is. I need to understand what's driving the need and then what the supporting information is in the BCP. So who does it impact? What are the benefits? What part of the organization is this changing? What does it look like now? And how are you proposing it to look like in the future? Think about the what. Sometimes we get a BCP and you want $2 million and I can't tell what it's for. Is it for contract services? Is it for staffing? Do you need to buy some software licensing? Be prepared to have a breakdown for that. If it's not in the BCP, that is probably something that we're going to ask for. So, maybe have that ready. And then, why do you need it? Why can't your existing staff do the work now? Is there something, driving that need? Is it legislation? Is it workload? And do you have workload metrics to support that? And then think about, what is not getting done? What is the risk if this doesn't get supported? Or what type of consequences might occur? And, we really have to balance everything, especially, in our current budget situation, but also think about when you might need the funding. So if it's a project, does it align with the project schedule? Do we need to tie it to project milestones? Do you only need money, for half of the year versus the entire year? IT projects, we generally fund on a year-to-year basis because we know things change within a year. But we also know that the budget cycle does not align very well with the project approval lifecycle. And so, we try to be flexible where we can and when we can. And, if we have a good understanding of the project's needs and the schedule and when things are going to happen in terms of timing, then, we hopefully can adjust, or, sometimes we recommend provisional language, for funding. So think about those things as you're developing the BCP and answering questions that you may receive from us or CDT. And then also be thoughtful about your funding alternatives. So, don't just say, I need this money, or I'm not going to do anything. Try to really think about different alternatives to help support your business problem. And then lastly, keep in mind that you could do all of those things, and we could be very supportive of the proposal. But the decision to support these proposals sometimes is bigger than CDT and ITCU. Oftentimes, it'll be based on the administration's current priorities or policy. And then everything has to be considered with other statewide programs. So obviously there's a limited budget, especially this year. The budget is very tight. And so it could just be a matter of priorities. It could be a matter of timing. It just could be a matter of funding, just because it's not available. Those are just a few tips that I have, just based on my experience at finance. And so hopefully you gained a little bit of a better understanding, not only of ITCU, our role, but finance as well, and some BCP tips. And we're always, happy to engage with you. If you want to reach out, please let me know. And I think there was another couple questions.
Yeah, there's a couple questions. So first one from Udaya: as modern digital services become more subscription and cloud-based, how does that change budget planning, for example, every month versus big upfront purchases?
Yeah, so we are seeing that more and more. And I think it's a matter of, in your budget request, you just need to explain what that is. Is it a one-time cost? Is it an ongoing cost? I think really what we're concerned about is, what is it? How much is it? And why do you need it? And so if we can, understand that need, and it's an ongoing need, then potentially, we would just fund that on an ongoing basis. That just needs to be, clear up front. The hard part is, we have to estimate, right? So the more information that you have in terms of, you've done the appropriate market research, maybe you've worked with CDT to see that, we've gotten the best pricing. We just have to work within those parameters. So I think we are seeing more of this subscription based, and as long as we understand what that is, I think that is definitely supportable.
Okay, and another question is, can DOF provide training for writing BCPs and how to deal with budget letter drills?
So we used to actually provide some training, and I think that's gone by the wayside a little bit, and especially now with our current situation, everyone being at home, we are working on some additional online resources and online training. There is, while it may be dated, I know that there is some information on our website on how to write an effective BCP, and I can send those links out as well afterwards. Really it's very not simple, but I want to stress that a lot of times we get a lot of information that is more fluff sometimes. It really comes down to, almost completed staff work, right? Like what is the problem? What is driving that? What do you need? Who, what, why, and when, I think is, in very simple terms, just explain what the business problem is, why you need it, and how you're attempting to solve that. I'm not sure if there is training specifically for budget drills, because oftentimes those just come out of a need for, the administration or our directorate needs something immediately. So bear with us sometimes with some of the budget drills. I think, the more you can work with your budget analyst and get to know them and work through them, I think that will help you tremendously.
Okay, and as far as the training, you know, we have some academies like the Information Technology Leadership Academy and some of the others that we do have our budget folks come and be guest speakers. They'll touch upon this because the students will ask, but it doesn't go into the detail that I think, you know, people are asking for the training. So this is something that I can follow up with Rosanna on to find out if we could put a class together, Rosanna, and just have it as part of our open registration, and anybody could go out there to the CD2 website to sign up for that if there's interest in that. But I'll work with you on what we could help you put together.
Sounds good.
Okay, and then okay, that was it in the chat, but we welcome you guys to unmute yourselves and ask any other questions before we move to the next area. Everybody have all their questions answered and all the money they need?
All right, thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you, Rosanna. And I should have said at the beginning, I did mention that we will have a Q&A after all the speakers from our partners from DOF, CalHR, and DGS. But then after that, I will, you know, let them, if they need to move on to other things, they may or may not stay on for the second half during CDT. But again, we'll share the recording, share the contact information, and feel free to reach out to anyone anytime. Okay, thank you, Rosanna. Okay, so now we have Sarah Gessler from California Department of Human Resources. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning. Good to be with you all this morning. I'd love to hear Rosanna say that the Department of Finance is the Department of No, because usually that's the moniker that CalHR gets stuck with. So happy to have company in that title. And I think much as Rosanna said, just like the Department of Finance is really striving to be a partner to all of the departments, so is CalHR. And so in terms of what CalHR does, we are responsible for all issues relating to, as you can see, employee salaries and benefits, bargaining. We bargain on behalf of the governor with all the employee represented groups. We manage the state's classification plan. So usually your first point of contact is going to be your HR person in terms of if you need to change classifications for any of the positions in your area. And sometimes that's something that is under the department's control in terms of classifications that are delegated to the department. Other times there are sometimes some very high level positions where it does require working with your CalHR liaison and approval by CalHR to use the classification. We have an Office of Civil Rights, and the programs that tend to fall under that program are your annual workforce analysis, your upward mobility program, the LEAP program, and that's for employees who identify with a disability. And that's really our effort to make sure that we have a diverse and inclusive workforce and an environment to welcome all of our employees to. And then also we have our selection division is over examinations, recruitment, and really all elements of the hiring process. And that goes from exam all the way through appointment. And then I'll speak in more detail on workforce and succession planning, as well as engagement and non-IT training. So basically what the Department of Human Resources does is set policy and provide resources for all manner of IT, or excuse me, all manner of HR issues. I'm trying to just do a little scope creep there on the side. No, we really function in the area of HR, and we do strive to be a partner with all of the departments. For most of you, again, your first stop is going to be with your own HR shop at your department, and then they will interface with the appropriate department or the appropriate division at CalHR. And again, you know, just as Rosanna said, early engagement on all of these things is really important, and being able to use data and strong arguments or strong information to really support your request and your need is a critical piece in terms of CalHR understanding why it is that you need what you need and trying to help you arrive at the best possible solution. Let's see. And then, so if we can go on to the next slide, I'll go ahead and speak in a little more detail on workforce and succession planning and issues that are under my direct area. So in the Workforce Development Division, we have the Statewide Training Center, we have Workforce Planning, Succession Management, and Organizational Development. Those are our main business lines within the Workforce Development Division. And they're really there to support you in planning for your future needs of your area. We function both at the department level as well as the individual level. So we're always interested in how we can support you, whether your department has a workforce plan or not, or a succession plan or not. How can we best support you in the area that you have as well? So for example, oh, and I do want to just jump back real quick. When you guys showed the old model of IT moving to the new model of IT, I really think like that is an absolutely fabulous picture for how we're trying to work in all areas of the workforce, right? So here we have very hierarchical, very, top down. And I think, it works for in a lot of situations. And I think, as our workforce and our needs for our departments have evolved, as resources have gotten a little bit tighter, one single flow of information up and down and not having all the model affords you really does help in terms of your cross-training, your knowledge transfer, and collaboration, and really doing things in different, new and different ways. And I'm just getting notices, of course, that my internet connection is unstable. So if I drop out, let me know and I'll call back in. Okay, so if we can go back real quick to the CalHR slide, I'll speak a little more into how we do that for you. Okay, so we have a statewide training center. We have a brand new learning management system, CalLearns, that just launched in July. And this is where we offer statewide training to all employees across the state. So we have about 200,000 employees, and this is where we push out all of the training that's available. And we do partner with CDT so that we don't have a lot of overlap, but there's not a gap between the training that is offered. So we really try to stay in the lanes of non-technical IT training. And then of course, CDT is the experts for anything specific to IT. So, and I know that both organizations, we work together in terms of making sure that the needs are met. So if you have something that you're not finding on one of our catalogs, then we definitely want to know about it. And you'll see when you get the presentation that these are links to the pages where you can find more information for these systems. So CalLearns is where you're going to find training for yourself and for all of your employees. And we also part of the Statewide Training Center are the California Leadership, Lean, and HR Academies. So the Leadership Academy covers the mandatory training for new to role supervisors, managers, and executives. And of course, this isn't just for IT, it's for all leaders across the state. And our goal really is to provide a foundational training for all of our leaders so that we have a single leadership language across the state of California. We have a policy basically saying that all employees, at those kind of stage gates, entry into supervision, entry into management, entry into executive, do need to come through our training. The supervisory is 80 hours, the manager is 40 hours, and the executive is 20 hours. And then there's also a requirement for continual education, because of course, even if we get fabulous training at our new to role positions, or at that point, we're not done. We all need to keep growing and keep learning in our roles. And so that's really the point of the continual learning requirement. So Lean is actually, centers also on process improvement. So if you aren't familiar with that, that we've, in the shift from in-person delivery to, of course, having to switch to remote delivery for all of our training products, we had to focus on our mandatory training programs first. So all of the California leadership offerings are now available in a remote format, and as is our selection analyst training, which has to do specifically to HR. And next we'll be focusing on Lean. So you'll see information about our white belt and also our yellow belt courses coming soon. Some of our larger departments have actually already gone through our train the trainer kind cohort for lean. And so some of you may actually have lean training already going in your departments if you're in one of the larger departments or one of the departments that has already taken that on individually. So that's the statewide training center. Also, one thing you've probably seen reminders on is the sexual harassment prevention training. That's actually through the Department of, that's through DFEH. It's not through CalHR currently, but it's a free training for sexual harassment prevention. And it's, I'm sure you'll be hearing from your HR folks, if you haven't already, that we need to be in compliance for all of our staff by the close of this calendar year. So let me know if you have any questions on that, or if you need the link to that training. Let's see, for the statewide training center, I think that's good. For workforce planning and succession management, we do have a lot of what I would say are really just self-service resources. My usual joke for our own website is, if you have insomnia some night and you need to scroll through an endless website that has tons and tons of resources that you want to go down the rabbit hole on, this is where to start. There is a ton of really great information on all phases of workforce planning and succession management. And for those of you who may not have dabbled in workforce planning before, what we really describe it as is having the right people in the right place with the right skills at the right time. That's a whole lot of rights. And so the processes of workforce planning help you identify what it is that you need for your workforce today, where your gaps might be, and then also looking forward anywhere from 1 to 3 to 5 years. Where do you know that your workforce is going, and where do you know that you're going to need to develop your workforce to meet those needs in the future? And a lot of times these processes really dovetail very nicely with what Rosanna was talking about for budget change proposals. If you can look forward and know what it is you're going to need more of, need less of, need differently, then you can start building those business cases and start collecting the data that really will support a strong request. You'll be able to support why it is that you need what you do, and it'll be backed by the data that you've been collecting. For succession management, that's really where we look at having a strong bench strength for key positions in our organization. And for a lot of organizations start at the executive level when they start their succession management. Although I would expect, especially in IT, that you probably have a lot of key positions that may not necessarily be part of your executive team, but perhaps they're single points of dependency, or maybe a person or a team that have been in their role for quite some time and have a lot of that institutional knowledge. And if they were to win the lottery and walk out tomorrow, man, you'd be in a pickle. So that's really where succession management has a couple different goals. One is to prepare our current workforce to be able to be strong competitors for the opportunities in the future. And then of course, the other is to develop knowledge transfer strategies for those that are in the roles now. And in terms of the other resources we have for that, we do have cohort training programs that we run twice a year. And that's one for workforce planning and one for succession management. And really what those are a process to take you through the development of a workforce or a succession management plan. And so we've, since we are a very small team, much like the Department of Finance, we're staffed very leanly. And so we're not really in the capability of being able to give that one-on-one support department by department to get folks across the line with a workforce plan. So what we've done is develop a cohort that involves workshops where everybody comes together and learns the principles of workforce planning or succession management. And then there's homework in between the workshops, and there are consulting sessions in between the workshops where our subject matter experts meet with the participants in the cohort to really look at how these principles apply to your organization or your part of the organization specifically. And I kind of equate that to back in the day when you're going to math class and everything makes sense when the instructor does it. And then you go home and you open up the homework and you're like, I've never seen this before. I have no idea what to do with this. So sometimes it makes perfect sense in a workshop setting where it's all theoretical and we do the best we can to offer practical exercises in the moment. But when you actually go to construct your plan, a lot of times, since all of our organizations are very individually situated and have individual missions, there are different situations for everybody. So that consulting really does come into come into play in terms of making sure what you're writing is the best fit for your organization. And we have prior to this point, we've really kept the participation in those cohorts at the department level, because we do have a lot of departments that don't yet have a workforce plan. But what we've certainly been doing is considering opening that up to either section leads, branch chiefs, whatever functional title you have in your organization, that may want to also participate, because we think that's also a great way to support workforce planning becoming the norm at every operational level. In terms of organizational development, this is an area that's really kind of, we're just starting and we're just kind of getting going in terms of the way that we're able to support departments. We do have an engagement program, and you'll see the link there. And that right now is at the department level, and it involves a survey as well as support for action planning. But that we do have a lot of resources, even if your department doesn't do something at the very highest level. We do have a lot of understanding of where the organizations typically are with their needs, and are happy to share information on that if that's something that you'd like to do for your part of the organization. I will share that for all the departments that have gone through our engagement program, really the heavy hitters in terms of where the needs are communication and change management, with process improvement coming, right under those two. So as you can imagine, we've all, I think I had 2 days to tell all my staff, by the way, we're all teleworking now, right? So probably not the epitome of positive organizational change management. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement in how we handle those situations, given that we don't often function in an ideal world when it comes to the changes we need to implement. So sometimes regular old life gets in the way. But we do want to support departments in terms of employee engagement and making sure we're setting you up to succeed there. And then GovOps actually has just recently published this website here, the Telework Resources. And that is something I encourage you to check out as a way to support your team and make sure that everybody is set up for success in kind of this new world, whether you have a team that's wholly working from home, or whether you have folks that are going into the office part-time, some sort of hybrid version of that, or whether you have folks that are still working in, kind of in the building, so to speak. So that's definitely a great resource that I would definitely suggest checking. They are updating that periodically too. So just if you've already checked it once, do make sure to go back and check again, because they are adding additional collateral periodically. Boy, that was a whole lot of talking and a lot of blah, 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 blah. So would love to know what questions you guys have, or what you'd like me to go into more detail, or
Hi, Sarah. So we have a few questions in the chat, and I'm sure that we have some other ones, but I did just want to quickly pivot to Angela, because she needs to hop off at 10 o'clock. Angela, awesome. Are you still on?
Yes, I'm still here. I apologize, but I thought this only went until 10, so.
Yeah, so we'll just, Sarah, we'll come back to questions for you, and we'll just let Angela go just quickly through her slides, and then we'll show her contact information. Okay, so this is Angela Shell from the Department of General Services.
All right, so I'm just unfortunately going to have to quickly run through this so that I can make my next meeting. But DGS, so I'm Angela Shell. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer for the state of California. I'm also the Deputy Director for the Procurement Division here at the Department of General Services. So just some background for those of you that are not familiar with DGS's operations. We serve as the business manager for the state of California, and we provide a variety of services to state agencies that include real estate management and design, professional printing, we do administrative hearings, we have legal services that includes approval of non-IT service contracts, we have building standards, and then in my area, we do guidance, oversight, and direction on procurements for the state of California that includes non-IT goods and IT goods and services out of the procurement division. So one of the biggest things that we do is delegate purchasing authority to state departments. So the current law says that for any procurements that are in excess of $100, so it's a very low standard, DGS has to provide procurement authority to departments in order to make those purchases. And so nearly all of the departments under the executive branch do have some level of purchasing authority. There are some very small boards and commissions that may not have purchasing authority, but by and large, most departments have purchasing authority, and it varies. In 2017, we implemented an accreditation program for state departments, and that has 4 different tiers that comprise the level of procurement authority. And it's, again, based on experience of staff, training, policies and procedures in place, and those sorts of things. So we do have a purchasing authority unit that handles delegation of all of those. And we also come out and do regular reviews, compliance reviews. DGS has an audits division that will come out and audit departments for their procurement practices. You want to go to the next slide for me? Thank you. Some of the other things that DGS is responsible for with respect to procurement is that we do establish acquisition methods, including leverage procurement agreements, so CMAS, master services agreements. In the IT world, that includes the IT master service agreement, which is typically consulting services. We do cooperative agreements through the NASPO, National Association of State Procurement Officials. And those are multi-state contracts that the state of California either directly participates in the procurement or establishes agreements to be able to use those contracts. We do statewide contracts for goods, things like PCs, printers, those sorts of things. And we also have the software licensing program that has a lot of the vendors that you all use today in terms of getting subscription agreements or getting things on contracts so that you can have the software that you need to get your mission done. We also certify small business and disabled veteran business enterprises on behalf of the state of California. So all state departments are responsible for ensuring that they meet 25% small business participation throughout their contracting levels, as well as a 3% DVBE participation in spend each year. And so departments are responsible for collecting that data and submitting it to DGS on an annual basis. We compile a report and post it out there. And we do capture it by categories. So, how is the IT spend year over year? How is construction spend year over year in those specific areas? And that helps us kind of target areas where we might need additional certified entities so that the state can meet their overall goals. The other things we do, we develop green purchasing policies through our environmentally preferable purchases program. And what that does is it sets purchasing specifications, and a lot of those are included in our statewide agreements that are mandatory for state departments. So PC goods will already have things like EPEAT or Energy Star requirements when purchasing those goods. But we do establish those standards in the event that a state department is purchasing something that is not on a mandatory contract. And we encourage departments to include those specifications when they're advertising their contracts. And then the last thing that's on this slide is we train state purchasing professionals through our Pca program. And so this is open to all state departments. It's mostly targeted toward procurement staff, but we recognize that there are other entities within state departments that need to know about procurement, things like program staff who are putting together their needs and then sending them to the procurement staff to be able to process that procurement on their behalf. And so to that end, we have a couple of programs that I would encourage you to take as new executives with the state. We do have an executive certificate that has the basics of procurement, and it meets the requirements for that manager training every 2 years that we're all required to take. And it's just got modules on, what is procurement about? And it talks about, the ways in which procurement can be done legally in the state of California. We also just recently developed some EPP training that, again, goes through the basics of what it means to, be aware of EPP when we're looking at goods and services that we're procuring on behalf of the state of California. A couple other things, I'm going to just take one more minute. We also handle the non-competitively bid process through DGS. We have an online portal where state departments, if you want to procure something that is in excess of $25,000 that will go over, that you will not achieve competition, you do have to go through the NCB process. And both CDT and DGS have the NCB portal. It'll shift you to whichever department you need to go to once you enter into the portal and start entering in your information. But we do work closely with CDT as our partner when looking at IT procurements and whether something is in fact a non-IT or an IT type of service or good. And so we do process that portal. We do post it. It's all online, all the signatures, everything. It's a fully online portal. It also captures limited to brand requests and special category requests that departments submit. And we evaluate it and, approve or deny. We work with CDT. We work with the Office of Legal Services as well here at DGS to make sure that we're all kind of in line with where we're at on NCB requests. And then I didn't touch on it before because I apologize that I'm rushing through this presentation. The other thing that we work very closely with CDT on is the accreditation process. So when we're looking at putting a department within a certain tier within this process, we do reach out to CDT and we have that conversation about whether we should be approving a request for, say, an increase in a tier from tier 1 to tier 2. Same thing when we get a one-time request for a purchasing authority increase. So you may just have one procurement that goes, it goes above your delegation, but you want to be able to process it. If it's IT related, we also work with CDT just to make sure that we're both on the same page with where departments are with respect to IT procurement. So with that, again, I truly apologize that I have had to rush through this presentation. I'm sure Brenda will send out my contact information, and I'm happy to answer any questions, after if you want to get those down on paper and send them over to me. So with that, I truly apologize, but I do have to leave.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. I'll follow up with any questions that we receive and share her contact info with the rest of you. Okay, so so I did just want to go back for questions for Sarah. I know I saw a few, so let me scroll through the chat here. Okay, does HR provide training on creating succession planning program? And can you share the link to the resources? I believe Sarah touched on that, and let me go back. And once you get the document, all of these are links to those resources.
You got it.
And then what OD services does HR provide?
So OD is an area that we're really light on. It's, a lot of it touches on HR, but it hasn't necessarily always been thought of as true HR. So it hasn't been something that CalHR has traditionally done. We're looking to leverage what we've learned through our engagement work in terms of how we can best support departments going forward, both with engagement as well as things like organizational change management, communication resources, and those kinds of things. But I'll be very blunt that we don't have a ton in this area. Thankfully, it's an area that is well covered, with other online resources and training opportunities. But it's something that we're working on.
And there are OCM courses that CDT offers online, as well as what we consider our open registration.
Awesome.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for her to verbally share or put in the chat?
Hey, I just want to make a comment. This is Ellen again. The telework resource that Sarah had brought up, I thought it was great that she brought that up. Here I'm promoting collaboration under the leadership of GovOps. It is managed collaboratively with CalHR, DGS, and CDT. So, as telework policy begins, it is ready to be released, you'll see more additional information being added to that website. But I agree, it's a lot of really great information that those organizations are collaborating, and I see notes daily on things that they're doing with the website. So a lot of work being done. So I'll attest to that. So thanks, Sarah, for bringing that up.
Yeah, and there actually is a contact us button on that website. So if you have questions about the resources directly, or there's a direct way to reach out.
Yeah, and we definitely want suggestions on things that you want to see on the website. Mm-hmm. So all that information goes to GovOps, and then we decide what stuff we're going to add to the website. So we definitely want to kind of crowdsource this thing. Thanks.
Yep, and remote telework, of course, is the big thing right now. Mm-hmm. So anybody have any questions around that? I know we've at CDT, we've had some questions around people moving out of state.
Sure. Yes.
Right? And so hopefully it'll touch upon that as we continue to evolve the policy.
That's the first point of contact for that would be your own HR shop first. And then certainly that's something that the various control agencies and the various divisions within the control agencies are actively working on.
All right, this is Jay from CAL FIRE. I have a general question from CAL HR perspective, because I heard the department, the fiscal agency, they already discontinued their office rent, and they sent the employee kind of their office equipment, basically asking me to permanently work from home.
Oh, okay.
I'm not want to confirm. I just say in general, because we support teleworking, continuously. What is the direction from CAL HR? Are you going to maintain 50-50 or some kind of a ratio after the pandemic, knock the wood, is over?
Yeah, I haven't heard of like a specific target percentage for ongoing. I think this is something that everybody's very actively looking to pursue for where it makes sense, both from a mission perspective as well as an employee support perspective. So I think the message I've heard repeatedly from all levels is flexibility in the moment. And I think there will be a lot more work put into whether it's there are specific percentage targets, or whether that's something that really is agency by agency or department by department. We have, if you count everybody, we've got approaching 150 different state department boards, commissions, and in various organizations. They're all situated very differently in terms of their workforce and in terms of the type of work that they do. So, I think it's one of those things where it's difficult to say right now, here is the line in the sand for a percentage of the workforce. I think the key thing is to learn as much as we can about how to work as effectively as possible in the current situation, and let that be one of the things that helps guide our processes going forward.
All right, thank you so much for the information. I just want to kind of say CAL FIRE, our firefighter cannot virtually fight in the fire. So
right. Exactly. We have a lot of different organizations where the more traditional office work can certainly be accomplished or might be able to be accomplished from home or from a different remote location. Yeah, of course, there are plenty of essential workers in our own workforce in all manner of fields, from law enforcement to firefighting to janitorial work. There's a ton.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Sarah? And I'll open it up if anybody has any questions they want to go back to Rosanna. Again, Angela had to jump off, but in the chat, all three of their email addresses are shared there, so you can contact them. Oh, here we have a question for DGS hopped off. So I will, there are two, this is the second question for DGS, so I will follow up with Angela on those. Question is, can you confirm that all contracts need to be reviewed and approved by DGS due to COVID crisis? I don't know if Andrea or Andy have any knowledge about that.
You know, offhand, Andy's having some computer issues. Good morning, everybody. It's Andrea Spears. I would say that, for a little bit more information that helps to sort of make clear, the role of DGS versus the role of CDT with respect to contracts and solicitations procurements. You can look in the guide on page 18 and 19. I don't have the answer as far as, whether or not all of those contracts need to be reviewed, but certainly, we have our oversight, role both at DGS and at CDT. There are some obviously allowances as a result of the pandemic, emergency. So I think we'll probably need to get some detailed information to this group. Brenda.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. Any other questions for Sarah or Rosanna before we take a quick break? No? Okay. So we'll go ahead. It's 10:14. So let's take a quick break. I'll just round it up. So let's be back at 10:20. You probably just want to, mute your mics and keep the screen on. And Rosanna and Sarah, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You're welcome to stay on after the break, but if you have other things that you need to get to today, understand that as well. And if we have any other questions come through later on, I'll follow up with both of you.
I'm not able to stick around, but I'm happy to answer any questions or dialogue with anyone afterwards too. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Same here. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, and so 10:20, everyone, and I will send out this slide deck right now. If you were not on the original meeting invite, you may not get it. So, so just check when we come back on in 5 minutes, and then let me know in the chat, and then I'll make sure I send it to you if you get missed. Okay, thanks, everyone. See you in 5.
just went ahead.
No, let me just send this. Yeah, what's up? What? Oh, that guy's-
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Again, let me pull up my screen share. Okay, so we are back to Ellen, and we're going to go over a CDT.
Okay, thank you so much, Brenda. Okay, so so a few of us will be just talking about different components of CDT and what the department does. So we'll first start off with just talking about the CDT establishing the strategic plan, or really the state's IT strategic plan. So this is not CDTs, this is for the state IT community. The last plan, or our current plan, is called Vision 2020. So it goes through this year. So I'll just kind of focus a little bit on this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time since we're in the process of creating Vision 2023. Actually, Justin Cohen-Shapiro, that's in this orientation, is leading that effort for CDT. So we're excited about getting into that. If you have questions later, we can get more insight. So really for Vision 2020, it's really about creating one digital government, delivering securely by a dynamic workforce. And we mean by the one digital government is really not just the IT community again, it really is our business partners working together to deliver these incredible digital services. Okay, so next slide. I'll just go ding. Okay. Okay, so here are some the three main goals: is create one digital government, ensure secure delivery. So security is, of course, most top of mind for us. And then certainly building a dynamic team as well, or workforce. Okay, so I won't go into too much on that. And then we have some guiding principles on the next slide. Really just, hey, let's put some of the key things, put our customers front and center, really user-centered design, thinking about what's going to work for the users, the customers, try to be innovative, really focus on outcomes, just not on the process itself, but what are we trying to achieve? Really own it and really take a statewide perspective. Don't just look at things from your department's perspective. We need to work collaboratively to, create maybe more enterprise shared services, so multiple departments can utilize that, as well as gain the value of maybe some shared pricing. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of stop at that on Vision 2020. If you have more questions, we can certainly go into more details. Next is really, the next slide is about technology governance, how we do governance within the state. Certainly Department of Technology, we take a leadership to the governance process, but we rely on our governing bodies. So our Information Technology Executive Council really helps. They provide input into the policies for the state, help set statewide direction. So this is typically, these are, our agency information officers, some key CIOs like Beth Cousins from Cal OES. We also have our partners, so Cal HR, DGS, who am I missing? Department of Finance. They're also represented on our council. So we get a wide kind of a view moving forward. Okay, so we also have representatives for constitutionals, somebody to represent all the constitutionals' interests, as well as somebody that represents what we call the independent agencies that don't directly report to an agency. Okay, so that's really ITech. Under ITech, we have advisory councils. So the main advisory councils that we have right now, we have an enterprise architecture group, information security, project management, and then we also have a technology operations advisory group. So those are ones that we get together, again, getting into a little bit more details and helping to get advice. CDT runs these groups, but certainly we're looking at getting community input into the things that we're doing in those key areas. We certainly rely on our department leaders on the governing body to, having participation, or going to have participation in Vision 2023 or Vision 2020, whatever the current IT strategic plan is. Okay, so I'll move on, and then let's talk a little bit more about Department of Technology. Okay, so here's a lot of work. We really do partner very closely with the rest of the state. We're spending a lot of time with the local government as well. We actually meet, I think, on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, and we're collaborating now on things that we can do together with the locals. So we work with MESAC and CISDA, which are the two associations for the city CIOs and the county CIOs. So we have a strong relationship with them. We also work with educational entities as well to really look at how do we deliver better services to the residents of California. Okay, so here are the delivery areas. I won't go through those in detail because we'll actually have slides that take you through these different organizations. Okay, let's move on. So we talked a little bit about the governance. So really, here's how we do state technology policy. So I would definitely encourage you, if you're not familiar, to take a look at the State Administrative Manual and the State Information Management Manual. That provides policy as well as kind of procedures, actual templates for deliverables. So I won't go into all those details now, but definitely check out the resource guide that goes into more details, and then actually check out SAM and SIM. There's different reporting guidelines, things that you need to report to CDT, ID cost reports, to here's my security, my ISO, things like that, various types of things that we need to report in. And technology letters are really just the structure in which we submit policy changes or procedural changes. So we'll issue technology letters, and that will tell you here we're changing SAM or we're changing SIM. Okay, the next slide just kind of goes into some of the process. So somebody has an idea, maybe it's a department, maybe a program area within CDT may say, hey, we need to revise policy, or we need to create something new, or there could be some new legislation that comes through that prompts us to issue new state technology policy. Again, the outputs we already discussed. Okay, next. Okay, so the state data center services is really, it's about all the technology services that we offer. I should have really said, you know, CDT kind of has this mixed kind of two hats. One is really kind of a control agency and part is service provider. So here's really the service provider arm of the organization. So we call it data center services, but it really includes mainly two offices within CDT, which is the Office of Technology Services, which is OTEC, and the Office of Enterprise Technology, OET. So those are the main two organizations that provide services under what we call the data center services. Okay, so we provide all kinds of different services from infrastructure and platform. Cloud services, some things on definitely a lot of things on-prem. We host websites. We provide GIS services. Things like that, network and telecom. We have our California enterprise network that we support, CalNet, which is our California network and telecommunications contracts, very popular contract vehicles for telecom. DGS handles all non-IT and IT procurements, but CDT has delegation for telecommunications procurements. And so we're the program owners for that. Andrea, I'll talk more about the other side of things, our counterparts in our STP group. So we have a lot of software services as well as professional services. These services are provided either by CDT staff, sometimes by vendors, and many times public and private partnerships. We offer these services. So each customer, if you're an AIO or a CIO, if you haven't met with your customer engagement account lead, you will soon. And so you're going to have somebody that's going to work with your department if you have any questions regarding our technology services. Okay. And then here's a website where you can go and see all the different services and get more information. Okay, next. So our Office of Information Security, major player these days. Some of the key functions that they offer, especially all under the risk management umbrella. We do advisory services. So sometimes with our CalSIC partners, and I think Chris Childs is on here. He's also a part, CDT, Military Department, Cal OES, and CHP all joined together to be a part of the California Cybersecurity Integration Center, CalSIC. And so they work together to provide some advisory services. They also provide some incident response, cybersecurity incident response. So now I know recently they may have been helping out a city or a county on a cyber event. They help out other state departments as well. So that partnership does a lot of really great things for the state to protect us from these bad actors that are out there. Our information security at CDT also provides audits. So this is more from a policy perspective on security. They'll do that. They can provide advice on how to make sure that all the policies are in place, things like that. They could do that. We also work with, it's mainly times it's a military department that provides a more technical security assessment. So that's the independent security assessment. So that'll usually be done by the military department of departments, entities across the state. Sometimes there's other third-party providers that also provide that as well. And then one of the main things that we had set up over the last couple of years has been our 24/7 Security Operations Center. So they're keeping an eye on things, certainly on our CJ network, and then over our statewide, our data center services, they're keeping an eye on that. But also, you know, I know that they're working with other departments on things that they're actually getting logs in and managing and really doing a threat detection for us. Okay, and next.
Hey, Ellen, we have a question going back a couple slides around ITEC. Where would someone find the membership of the ITEC, the IT Executive Council? It's not on our website.
Good question. I can provide it. That's no problem. It's not a secret thing, but yeah, I could provide it if you want. I don't recall having it on our website.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just I'll follow up with you and then get it out to.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Another group is our Office of Enterprise Architecture. So what they do, of course, I'm not going to explain enterprise architecture, but I will just say that they can provide consulting services. They've gone into some departments, worked with more of the business side, not so much the IT, to really trying to figure out strategies, looking at business. How did they really, iteratively try to work on solutions? They do that. They work with other enterprise architects across the state. There is an advisory group. And they also have a California enterprise framework that they maintain and support for the state. Can definitely get more information in the resource guide on that group as well. Okay, one more. All right. So our administrative services office is pretty much like every other department's admin group, except one key thing is they actually maintain our rate structure. So CDT is basically, we have to recover about 98% of our costs. So we're pretty much fully cost recovery. And so what's unique about what our administrative offices does is they take care of our rate structure and cost recovery. So we have to recover for the services we provide, and we like to break even. We don't make money. We don't get profit. There's no profit here. It's just about recovering our costs. But it really is 90% of our department costs. Okay, so wanted to bring that up. So,
can I ask a question about the cost recovery? So do you determine yourself, or does DGS provide oversight on what costs you can basically incur and recover?
Yeah, well, the oversight is actually, it wasn't an oversight. Our rates have to be approved by Department of Finance.
Finance, okay.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. So we do, they have to approve all that, and that's the only ones we're able to we're only able to bill based on these rates that DOF approves. Okay. And then Office of Governmental Affairs for CDT, we have a communication groups that takes care of, I think some of you might be working with them on annual report. So they do a bunch of things for us to help support and really a lot of external communication. So they'll tweet, they'll send blogs out, things like that, to be able to share the good things that not just CDT is doing, but what the state is doing. We have a broadband and digital literacy group. So if you aren't familiar, the governor came out with an executive order for broadband for all. So our broadband and digital literacy group is very busy right now, coming up with our plans and how we're going to execute that executive order. Our department director, or our state CIO, Amy Tong, she is the chair of the California Broadband Council, and they're the ones that have been asked to come up with an action plan for the broadband for all initiative. So staying very busy with that. And then we do have a legislative liaison that keeps apprised of what's going on in the technology legislation front, and works with CDT. We have in the resource guide information on the legislative process, which I think is very useful for those of you that are kind of new to state government, and I'm familiar with the timing and what goes on with the legislative process. Okay. Then I think I might be done. So now I'm just going to turn it over. I think Andrea's going to go next to talk about the rest of our organization.
Does anybody have any questions for Ellen now?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
And we'll have some time at the end of this half of the presentation for any questions as well. But again, feel free to send it in the chat, or just like Beth did, put your hand up there and ask a question. Beth, do you still have a question, or is your hand still up from last time?
I don't have a question. I think my hand was up from the very beginning. Maybe.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Do you know how to put it back down? You just click on it again.
I probably can figure it out. So I'll
yeah, you just, I know, I mean, everybody's like getting used to all these different things, but you just click on it again and it'll go back down.
Okay.
Okay, so we now turn over to Andrea Spears, who is our State Chief Project Officer, and Andrew Wharton, who is our State Deputy Chief Project Officer.
Great. And look at me, I'm unmuted. I'm so proud of myself. So good morning, everyone, and we can go ahead and go to the next slide. I just wanted to sort of kick off. Andy and I want to, share with you sort of what we do in the Office of Statewide Project Delivery and how we may be able to help you, in terms of your projects. I kind of wanted to emphasize a few things. First of all, the Office of Statewide Project Delivery is made up of 4 sort of areas, and Andy's going to kind of get into the details about that. But we have the California Project Management Office. We have the project approvals and oversight area. So, we handle the approvals on one end, and then, and of course, do oversight of the sort of non-delegated projects, as well as the statewide technology procurements. And we'll get into those details. What I guess I wanted to emphasize here, and I kind of want to harken back to, what I heard from Rosanna, is that I view this, I love this orientation for a lot of reasons. The guide is going to provide some really good detail about all the areas in CDT and how the CDT works with the state and across the state with you folks. But what's important, I think, though, are the connections that we're all able to make during these discussions. So I just wanted to sort of encourage everyone. I know I'll try to reach out and be able to talk to a lot of you, but for the Office of Statewide Project Delivery, as well as the other offices here, what makes us most successful, and trying to carry out, our role as a service deliverer and also as a control agency are, really the conversations and the relationships that we're building with folks like yourselves, that are sort of, coming into your new roles. So I can't wait to meet you. I know a lot of you. I want to say hello to those I know, and to those who I don't know. I really look forward, to meeting you. Our sort of, new, model of IT is I love that as well, because it's really about how we can sort of collaborate together in order to be able to get successful projects taken care of and get, good business benefit out to, out to Californians and to state departments as quickly as we can. So with that, I'm hoping that Andy was able to get back on. We'll go ahead. Oh, awesome. We'll go ahead and start with the first slide. And Andy Wharton, who is our Deputy State Chief Project Officer, is going to give you some details around some of the areas that we have in our offices.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you, and hopefully I'll get a chance to meet you all soon. I'm going to discuss, I'll be talking about 2 slides focusing on the areas within our office that deal with project approval, with project oversight, and with the California Project Management Office, which is a resource to the entire state. Before I do that, I'd like to hark back to something Rosanna said and also something Sarah said. For our Office of Statewide Project Delivery, we'd like to be the office of we'd really like to help. So please, please engage early with us, especially when it comes to your projects. We recognize that CIOs are dual-hatted. You have a responsibility to keep the lights on, to keep your IT systems working, to continue to support your day in and day out operations. and to keep your program areas running smoothly. And then you also are a special stakeholder when it comes to initiating projects to support those program areas. So that all gets started with, and as a result of the way our government code is set up, we have a federated model. So there is an element of government code that specifically provides certain level of authorization and authority to CIOs and to AIOs. So I would encourage you to become familiar with that. It is what guides us when we deal with projects and how we get projects started, and also has some elements that are germane to operations. In the ELO resource guide, you'll find that there's a State Information Management Manual 05, which is your reporting schedules. Your chief of PMO should be experts in this, in these reporting requirements. And so I would encourage you to make sure that they are completely aware of that and provide that information to you so you can keep on track of what the annual requirements reporting, monthly, annual, and ad hoc reporting requirements are. The other thing I would say, especially as goes, yes?
This is Beth. I wanted to ask a question. You talked about the CIO, what authority we have. Is that in one of these documents?
It is actually. It is in the second page of the ELO, and it's referenced in AB 2408 associated policy. And it specifically goes to Gov Code 11545 through 11546, where the policy stems from.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And if you're having trouble finding it, I'd be happy to provide that as well. As we're in budget season and our focus in recent budget cycles has been on security, I would also like to suggest very strongly that if you're a new CIO, your number 2 or number 3 stop should be to your security information officer to find out what your organization profile, security profile is, and where you are with regard to any type of assessments, security assessments, or independent security assessments that have done recently. This is an area that we often find doesn't necessarily get the attention that it should, although it is getting more and more, and that would be very, very important for CIOs to be aware of. And we review any budget change proposals that request resources to address some of those areas that have been identified. As we all know, that's one of the areas that'll get you into the paper in not a good way. So I would encourage all new CIOs to make that a high priority to determine where you sit. Okay, we talked a little bit about project approval lifecycle. Rosanna did a great job in helping to highlight, number one, how we partner with our sister control agencies, the Department of Finance, and then also with DGS in project planning and getting projects started. The primary focus here is on comprehensive upfront project planning. All the details that you'll find, those are active links in the presentation. They are also linked in the ELO. Can help you walk through that, and we're happy to engage in any questions you might have regarding project approval and that whole process. The earlier you engage, the easier it is on everybody in making sure that we can really help you get to where you want to be for projects that you need to be funded and through the budget process. There is some additional resource in the ELO that describe that. I will give you a pro tip that if your project is within the January 10 budget, it stands a high probability of being approved. If you put it in the spring cycle, it gets a lot more scrutiny from the legislature and may not get approved. So we would like to have all of your projects in by the Jan 10 budget deadline. And that just is historically has proven to be easier to get through the budget cycle process. The California Project Management Office is a resource. We provide project delivery services. We do have some project managers that are available, though I think we are maxed out at this point. That would be for non-delegated projects, those projects that are lower criticality and non-reportable. And then all of our supporting frameworks are located in the link to help you set projects up. Tremendous number of resources with regard to templates, guidance, and the like. If you have no questions about Yes.
This is Carolyn. If I could just correct you.
Oh, hi, Carolyn.
You misspoke. The California Project Management Office can only provide project managers for delegated projects. We can't provide project managers for non-delegated projects because that would be a conflict with our independent project oversight.
Thank you very much for correcting me. That is absolutely correct. Okay, if we could go to the next slide, please. This slide focuses on California Independent Project Oversight. This is where we have a unique role to play. We focus on those non-delegated projects. Those are reportable. And the objective is to walk along with the project team and to help ensure and steer the project to be successful to deliver the business value that's desired by the program area. We have a protocol and an expectation to engage in all aspects of the project, which sometimes creates a degree of uncomfortableness with regard to our relationship. We would like to have a very positive engagement so that we can get all of the information that we need to be able to do an independent assessment of how the project's doing. And then we want to reflect that back with a high degree of candor to the project sponsor, who is the primary accountable person for any project. Now, CIOs, you have a special role because part of your responsibility is to help set up the project, make sure you're ready to engage in this commitment, help get the resources aligned, work on the BCP and the project planning documentation through the PAL process, and then to help coach the sponsor on the sponsor role. The challenge is that often sponsors are unintended sponsors. That is, they are a director or a deputy director or perhaps even an undersecretary. That is the primary person trying to have this project be successful. That means that they have, and they are very unlikely to have been a project sponsor before. Most of them have not. And so it is a different role for them where they have been highly successful on their program areas and matriculated to higher levels of responsibility. They may have never been a project sponsor before. And project sponsorship is not a cheerleading position. It is a position that we in the state expect to have active engagement by the project sponsors and for them to have very, very direct communications with the project director and project manager. The CIO is responsible for helping that process and helping to provide information. Our role is to do analysis to identify risks, identify issues, identify and recommend course corrections, courses of action to take to the sponsor and the project leadership in a transparent and thoughtful way to assist any course corrections for that project. We would like every project to be successful. Sometimes there are significant challenges. We have learned over the decades where those challenge areas are. And we would be happy to engage with sponsors to help coach them and to help set expectations for their level of engagement. A lot of this information is contained in SIM 45, which is an active link, which is one of our guiding policy and procedures documents, and also by the state administrative manual. And again, your project management office, your chief of PMO should be expert in these two areas. Are there any questions with regard to the areas that I've covered? I'm happy to answer them now, or we can take it later. Okay, Andrea, I'm going to turn the remaining two slides over to you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the main things I'm gonna talk about statewide procurement process right now, but I wanted to emphasize it in this often sort of misunderstood that the statewide technology procurement office is actually a part of statewide project delivery. And in that office, what we do, or what that office does, is they conduct the oversight of the procurements that are related to IT projects. The main focus, with the statewide, IT project procurement is really about making sure that we're de-risking, the procurements, that we are ensuring good transparency, that we are making sure that the procurements are compliant, with the rules that, that govern procurement in the state, and that they are, fair, open, competitive. And so again, I guess I wanted to just sort of emphasize that, please, happy to sort of make connections with you, be talking with you about the, the procurements that you're doing around your projects. OSPD has a role in oversight, obviously, in addition to delivering services. And when it comes to IT project procurements, we do oversight consistently across. But there are different levels of oversight that we do, really depending on, I would say, the risk level of the project, its complexity, its size, and these sorts of things. When we are doing what we call, and it's just a terminology that we use in statewide project delivery, we do little O on a procurement, or little oversight. That means, although we might not be running that procurement, we are absolutely working with departments to review those solicitations and be able to offer feedback or guidance that we feel will help to result in sort of a positive outcome and get, the department the services or the goods that are needed to be able to, have a successful project. So, so we, assist you with your RFIs, with your market research, these kinds of aspects of the PAL activities, which Andy just talked about a little bit. And when I say PAL, that's the methodology that we use to plan projects. The procurements that are occurring where we do the market research or we develop the solicitations are happening really as part of this planning or PAL process. So it's really sort of one very sort of integrated process. We conduct the all the, as I said, competitive procurements for the IT projects, but we also do a lot in the realm of negotiating very complex and critical IT contracts through PPC code 6611, which gets us into those negotiations in a way that we can be the most successful on those procurements. We also do NCBs, or non-competitive bids, when they are appropriate. We try not to do those. We want, as we said, we want to ensure as much competition as we can, but there are times when a non-competitive bid is appropriate, and when that time comes, we handle that. All right. I think Andy just placed some links into the chat that can, that you could click on and get a lot more detailed information about some of the things that I just described. All right. Are there any questions before I move on to the next slide? Also about procurements? All right, let's go ahead and switch over. Okay, in addition to these, the IT related or IT project related procurements, the statewide technology procurement office also handles the telecom procurements, right? We oversee all of that. The CalNet procurements, where the program is there to be able to sort of purchase goods and services in the CalNet program, which we can tell you more about. But it's really more about that easy access to the network services for the state, and we handle those procurements. Procurement of emergency communication services, is something else that we do. And then the acquisition of public safety communications is an area or footprint that we get into. And the establishment of wireless radio communication services contracts. So in addition to the projects, and often related to the projects, the STP is heavily engaged in these sorts of activities, making sure that the telecom procurements are taken care of. When it comes to procurements, it is such a sort of a science. There are so many, guidelines that we have to follow, making sure that the right folks are in place to play the right roles, and ensuring that, all of our T's are crossed and our I's are crossed. I would absolutely, encourage you again, to work with us when it comes to your procurements. A lot of times there'll be, questions about, well, I'm not even, whether or not you're sure, you should be going to DGS versus, to CDT on a particular procurement. Basically, a lot of that has to do with your, for projects, your project cost delegation. Meaning that, if you are running procurements for your projects and they, the project is sort of a non-delegated project, which I feel like, Andy talked about a little while ago, then we need to be involved in your procurements. So what I would ask is that you, contact us, talk to us, check in, look at the different links that are there to be able to provide, additional information should you need it. There's also the guide that I just think is a lovely sort of a tool that you can use to understand, exactly sort of where which path you need to go when it comes to your procurement, and also to, happy to always receive a call or any kind of communication, from you, or I'm sure that Andy, would offer up the same thing. And also Marlon Palo, who a lot of you already know, who is our Chief Procurement Officer here and for the state when it comes to IT projects. And with that, I think I'll pause and see if there are any questions. I actually cannot see the chat right now on my screen. So if you've got
Andrea,
questions, answer.
Yeah, there was some ambiguity. AB 2408 bill was a bill that was chaptered some years ago and is now fully integrated into Gov Code 11546 through 548. I've just included in the link both the reference to LegInfo for Gov Code as well as the actual link to the PDF, which is located in the ELO resource guide. So you have them there.
Thank you very much, Andy. Appreciate that help.
Hey, Andy, can you sent that link to just me? So can you change that to post it publicly?
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So we've got a great group. As I said, we're happy to help. Our Office of Statewide Project Delivery is just interested in, doing everything we can to help to ensure, to partner with you to ensure that you've got, that your project really yields, the best business outcomes, that we can invest in for the state as quickly as possible, and that we're ready, especially, in these very tough times, but to make sure that the services and systems are there, to support. Okay. I think that's it for us, Brenda.
Okay. So, last but not least, my area, professional development. So we have two areas within professional development. We have our leadership academies, and then we have our workforce development. So with our leadership academies, we currently have 4. Hopefully you all have heard of ITLA, which is the IT Leadership Academy. We have Project Management Leadership Academy. Andrea is exec sponsor for that. Digital Services Innovation Academy, and the Information Security Leadership Academy. We just wrapped up the Information Security Leadership Academy. That one, that academy has a boot camp component and then the ability to take a certification exam at the end of it. And so, so this year and last year, we had 2 different certifications. After each academy, after each class, actually, we get feedback from the students, and then we look at the overall feedback that we got for that academy and then update it. So, so each year, with security, there's different focuses and there's a lot of certifications out there. So we kind of rotate through that to see which ones the students and, the CISOs and other execs are interested in having their staff take. So the IT Leadership Academy, we've had that for the longest time. This will be the 28th cohort, and each of these academies are offered once a year. So the IT Leadership Academy will be kicking off January 6th. If you haven't received an invitation for that, to look at the registration and start thinking about anybody in your organization that you would like to send, please let me know. We will be posting that and getting the word out soon. The application period is, I believe, open now, or will be open in the next day or so. And then again, the kickoff will be beginning of January. The past class graduated in July. It was scheduled to graduate in May, but because COVID hit and everybody went home, we took a pause for several weeks to, just like everybody else, when we all went home, we all scrambled with how do we handle this remote work type of thing. And so for us, that translated to how do we offer these training courses and academies that we have always offered in person. And so that was the time where everybody was just like, what is this Zoom thing? You know, learning what Teams was and how to do all this stuff. And so we got that together after after several weeks, we were able to continue that academy virtually. And then we had our first virtual graduation. So the academy after that was ISLA. That was our first academy that was completely virtual, and it went very well. We finished that about 2 weeks ago. And then again, now we're on the planning stages for ITLA. Right now, we are planning to hold at least the first half of that virtually. And again, we will be able to adjust once we find out what's going on with the numbers and when we all can go back. I don't know at what point in time that we'd be able to have large gatherings again. So we are planning for it to be virtual, but again, we'll be able to adjust if we have those in person. If you've been to our training and education center where we have our kickoffs, it's a fairly large room. So we would look at ways that we could have social distancing in place and things like that if we were to return before graduation commence next, I believe it ends in May. So if you want any more information around these academies, please reach out to me. And again, we really recommend you all at least promoting and recommending one of your staff to go to ITLA. We look for leaders that you believe are ready to go into the next step of their career, primarily a senior leadership role or an executive leadership role. And then we have our workforce development, and an area within that is our open registration. I had mentioned it earlier around the writing with Bcps to take a look at how we could maybe offer that training. So on our CDT website under Office of Professional Development, we have a course catalog that people can go in there and sign up at any time for courses. Of course, it needs to be approved through their normal chain at their departments. And this has traditionally been offered at the state level. However, we've been trying to promote it across local governments as well, cities and counties. And now with, of course, everything being remote, we've had an ability to promote that a little bit more because we're not constrained by people's traveling. So we've seen a little bit more with some counties getting involved, and again, we're trying to get more participation from cities and counties as well as our state departments that we typically have. We have some apprenticeship programs. We kicked off our mainframe apprenticeship program actually it was last March, because it was the last event that we had, like a day before everything shut down and everybody was sent home. And so we actually scrambled to make the social distancing be feasible in that kickoff. Our staff went in there and we spaced all the seats 6 feet apart, and well, it was before the masks at that time, but so it was typically the 6 feet apart. But we kicked that off in conjunction with GovOps, and then we had other participating agencies, DMV, FTB, DMV, EDD, and CDT. And so this was our pilot cohort for that. Several of the other apprenticeship programs are run by our agency, government operations agency, but we'll partner with them on the things that are coming up. And so then the next program that they're trying to kick off, will be kicking off, is information security apprenticeship program. So if you'd like to get more information about that, please reach out to me, and then I can either give it to you or get you in contact with somebody that's got all that information. And then lastly, the pipeline and pathways development. I'm on a governor's office cybersecurity education task force that is led by a professor at Fresno State. And right now they have put together a template curriculum for a four-year bachelor's degree in cybersecurity across all the CSUs and the UCs. It's going through the final approval phases now, and they're hoping to launch it by next fall of 2021, along with an apprenticeship component and then certifications that can be offered at the community college level as well. And then there are also other like after school programs that we're involved with. CDT took the lead in helping promote a Girls Go Cyber Start program earlier this year. And we moved from, I think California was last in place for participation the year before to where we were second or third for participation. So that was really exciting to get involved. So there's a lot of participation and involvement with again, local schools, the high schools, and community colleges, as well as the CSUs and UC systems. So with that, we wrap up our entire presentation over CDT, and I want to open it up to questions around anything that I just spoke to, or any questions you may have going back to Ellen or Andy or Andrea. Anybody?
That means we've accurately anticipated everybody's questions.
Yep. I'm looking at the chat and making sure there's nothing coming in. So.
Or they're a little like me, where the questions just magically pop into my brain once I get in the car on my way, or actually not get in the car, but as soon as I hang up.
If I could, I would encourage all of you that are working through the resource guide now and forward, if you see something, or you maybe already had an experience that you find yourself saying, if only I knew this back then, to send those to us so that we can improve this guide and provide a higher quality presentation the next time we do this to all of our successors. Anytime you'd like to do that, it would be welcome.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Andy. And again, the resource guide, you've heard several of us refer to that. That is attached to your meeting invite, but we can certainly share it out again, along with some of the other things that we've taken notes down to get back to you. We have the contact information in the chats, but also in the meeting invite if you need to get a hold of anybody, either any of the presenters or anybody else that was in this class. And then I did just want to give one plug to a big effort that we've been working on for the past few months, is the State Annual Cybersecurity Education Summit. That is October 20th and 21st. We've been working closely with our critical partners, CHP, Cal OES, and Military Department, and Sac State are the ones that are hosting it and facilitating it on a platform that they have. So please look for that, register for that. We have a lot of great sessions all around cybersecurity. Some of you know that I'm particularly interested in some of the ones that are around election security, because that's obviously a big deal right now. And then I will be moderating 2 sessions, and one of them we have local high school kids that have gone outside of their schools and put this program together, and they're talking about the STEM development, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics at the schools, and talking about like what kids at their grade level right now need from employers and just really from people in the industry to help them get involved and become successful and follow a path into getting into cybersecurity, but IT in general. So a lot of great sessions. Let me know if you're interested, but we are tweeting, you know, several people, CDT and the critical partners, as well as Sac State, a lot of tweeting and sharing on social media, the registration link and things like that. So if you can't find that, let me know, and I'm happy to share that as well.
Maybe I'll also mention that we used to have a biannual technology leadership forum, and now we've gone to an every 2-month cycle. So now we're not calling it the biannual, we're calling it our statewide technology leadership forum. So if you're, we send it to CIOs, certainly AIOs, CTOs, and ISOs, as well as agency ISOs. So we send it to those we have. We've been having it through Zoom. We're trying to just share information on what's going on across the state. Sometimes we have agencies presenting some things. So it's definitely a useful forum. We're doing it more often just because there's a lot of stuff going on right now. So just stay tuned. You should get invitations for that. So we had our last one at the end of September. So we should have another one this calendar year. So in like November timeframe. So take a look out for that.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, I want to thank you again for taking the time this morning to be on this call. We hope that you got a lot of good information. Please feel free again to reach out to any of us if you have any follow-up questions or need documentation. And looking at the meeting invite, again, you have a lot of AIOs, DIOs, and execs to the state. So a good starting tool if you're not familiar with everybody, take the time to reach out to people and get to know them. Okay, I think that's it. So, all right, thank you so much, everybody.